Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETA Prime back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at the newest offering from GEEKOM. This is the Mini IT13 and it's definitely packing a really powerful CPU with 14 cores, 20 threads, and they've managed to keep the size on this thing way down. Now they are offering a couple different CPU variants with this unit, but we've got their highest end offering here with an i9 13900H. Overall, liking the look of this thing. We've got a metallic blue coloring, and we do have quite a bit of I/O. And some I/O here that's really going to come in handy with this i9. We've got two USB 4 ports around back, so we can easily connect an eGPU. Along with the mini PC itself, inside of the box, we're also going to get a 120 watt power supply, a 6-foot HDMI cable. We've got some mounting hardware for a 2.5-inch drive in the bottom, and a face mount, plus some screws to help you get that thing attached. As for I/O, up front here, we've got two USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports and a 3.5mm audio jack. Over on the right-hand side, not much going on, but moving to the left, we've got a full-size SD card reader. And finally, around back, we've got our power input, two full-size HDMI 2.0 ports. We've also got one USB 2.0 port and another USB 3.2 Gen 2 port, a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port, and of course we've got those two USB 4 40 gig ports around back, and we can go full speed with these, connect an eGPU or really fast storage, or you could just go ahead and use them as video out if you wanted to. I also wanted to give you a look at the internals here, and it's actually really easy to get inside. There's 4 screws on the bottom, and the bottom plate actually acts as our heatsink for our M.2 drives, plus we can fit a 2.5-inch drive right here. When it comes to storage, it looks like they're using a Lexar branded M.2 SSD. This is actually a Gen 4 M.2 NVMe SSD, but we've also got a spot in here for a 2242 M.2 SSD also. So we can add some really good storage here, two M.2s plus that 2.5-inch drive. And when it comes to RAM, this utilizes DDR4. I've got 32 gigs in here running at 3200 megahertz. And of course, I wanted to give you a rundown on the specs. So like I mentioned, they do offer a couple different CPU variants, but the one we have here has the Intel Core i9 13900H. 14 cores, 20 threads. We've got 6 performance cores up to 5.4 gigahertz and 8 efficiency cores up to 4.1. Built-in Intel Iris Xe graphics with 96 execution units at 1500 megahertz. I've got 32 gigabytes of DDR4 in this unit, but it will support up to 64 in dual channel. One M.2 2280 PCIe Gen 4 M.2 SSD, plus we can add that other M.2 2242, but that has to be a SATA SSD. It's just the smaller SSD. They are a bit cheaper, little extra storage, much faster than a 2.5-inch drive. But if that's what you got, we've also got room in the bottom for that also. Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2, and out of the box, this is running Windows 11 Pro. Okay, so here we go. Got everything updated, got a lot of stuff installed that we're going to be testing out, and so far, this thing is really quick. I mean, I expected it to be with that 13900H. We've got 14 cores, 20 threads, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and the only thing that's really going to hold this back when it comes to gaming is that iGPU, the Intel Iris Xe with 96 execution units. Now with that iGPU, we can actually get some AAA gaming out of the way. We're not going to be doing over 60 FPS, but yeah, we'll take a look at that. Plus, we're going to be testing an eGPU running over USB 4 or Thunderbolt 4 in this case, since we're working with an Intel platform. But just using this as an everyday PC, we've got more than enough power for basically anything you want to do. And everything loads up really quickly. They've got a bunch of new PCs that they've been offering, but one that I'm really interested in is this Mini Fun 11. Hopefully I can get my hands on one soon, but in this video, we're taking a look at the IT13 with that 13900H. First thing I always like to take a look at is some 4K video playback. So we're going to head over here with a 4K 60 HDR video, stats for nerds. Make sure we're up to 4K. These chips offer phenomenal 4K video playback. We've got a few drop frames, and that's kind of normal for the load in, but you know, if you want to stream from your favorite site, 4K 60 HDR, you want to run it from an external drive or the internal, this i9 has more than enough power, even though we're only using those Intel Iris Xe graphics. In fact, this is capable of doing more than one stream of 4K 60. I've always had really good luck with these Intel chips when it comes to video playback, and this one's going to be no different. Next thing I wanted to take a look at were some benchmarks, and first up we've got Geekbench 6, single core 2732, multi 11124. Now we're going to take a look at some GPU benchmarks, and this is where it kind of falls behind some of the competitors, but remember we've got USB 4 so we can always connect an eGPU pretty easily. In Night Raid we only got an 18,349, and I also ran Wildlife, which is a Vulkan benchmark for this iGPU, 11,169. So it's not looking really good with these synthetic benchmarks, but let's test out some real-world gaming. And first up, we've got OG Skyrim. High settings, probably should have taken this down to medium, 1080p. It's not too bad, and if I didn't have that frame counter on, I really wouldn't even notice we were dropping under 60 every once in a while. It's not bad, and it's definitely playable with these older titles. So let's move up to something a bit newer, and this one is Forza Horizon 5. I dropped it down to 900p, low settings, and we just can't quite hit 60. At 720p, low settings with some FSR or even Intel XeSS, we can do 60, but at 720p it really kind of degrades that picture quality. And finally on the iGPU, Cyberpunk 2077. Low settings, 720p, we got an average of 35 FPS. Now if you don't mind playing these games at 30 FPS, 1080p, it'll do a lot of these AAA games just fine at 30, but most people do want a bit more out of it. So what we can do here is actually connect an eGPU. And for this, I'm going to be utilizing GPD's G1 external GPU. This actually has a Radeon RX 7600 XT. It's really awesome because it's basically a hub with extra I/O. It supports USB 4, Thunderbolt 3, Thunderbolt 4, and even Oculink. But with this unit here, we're going the USB 4 route, and we should see a nice jump in GPU performance with this attached. As soon as I get this connected, all I really need to do is install the AMD drivers, and we can start testing this thing out. Okay, so now I've got the external GPU connected, drivers installed. Instead of using the Intel Iris Xe graphics, we're going to be using this Radeon RX 7600 XT. 8 gigs of GDDR6, and of course we are running at 40 gigs here because we're running over USB 4, but it's going to offer a significant jump in GPU performance. So let's go ahead and check that out. Back to Forza Horizon 5, and instead of running this at 900p low settings on the iGPU, since we've got the external GPU connected, we can now take it up to high settings, 1080, no resolution scale, and get an average of around 96 FPS. So that's a big jump in GPU performance, and rightly so, because we're using that Radeon 7600 XT. Moving back over to Cyberpunk 2077, remember on the iGPU, we were at 1080p, low settings, and we got an average of around 35 FPS. But now we can take the settings up to high, we're still at 1080p, and we got an average of 78 FPS with this game. And you know, if we used a little bit of resolution scale, like some FSR, we could get a lot more out of it. But I've got one more game that I wanted to test here, and that's going to be God of War. 1080p, high settings, no FSR, we got an average of 74 FPS. And this one has always been kind of hit or miss on an eGPU, but with recent updates to the AMD drivers and the game itself, we're seeing some great performance. Another thing I always like to monitor with these mini PCs while I'm doing my testing is total system power consumption. So while everything's going on, this is plugged into a kilowatt meter from the wall. Remember, this is without an eGPU. At idle, 21 watts. Average gaming jumps up to 71, and the maximum that I could get this to pull was 93 watts. Remember, we've got that 13th gen i9 with 14 cores, and yeah, it is kind of power hungry, but we don't have to worry about a battery because we've got wall power with these mini PCs, and it's not bad. So overall, the new GEEKOM Mini IT13 is a great performer when it comes to CPU performance or just overall desktop use case scenarios. If you're looking for a gaming machine, I would definitely look somewhere else unless you've got an eGPU handy, because then we can really turn this into an awesome gaming mini PC. But you know, with those Intel Iris Xe graphics, and that's all we have out of the box, it is lacking a bit on the GPU side of things. But it's a totally capable machine, and yeah, if you wanted to pick something like this up just as your everyday desktop PC, then this is one that I would definitely have my eye on. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. I really appreciate you watching. If you're interested in learning a little more about this, I will leave a link to their website in the description. And if you've got any questions or if you want to see anything else running on this mini PC, just let me know down below. But that's it for this one. Like always, thanks for watching.